Hi everyone. This is a part 2 to my interview with Hubert, this time with questions from my community. It should be remembered that this interview took place back in November of 2023, so some answers could be outdated. I hope you're still able to learn something new and enjoy. This first set of questions comes from the Devious Melon. His first question is, how do you feel about the horror aspects of SCPSL and how they are currently? Do you think there's possible room for improvement?
Oh, there's always room for improvement. The only issue is, do we want to go in this way? There are many people who do want, including myself. I do want to expand the horror aspect of the game, but this is always a balancing act. We have so many people who play this game for the social aspect or the gunplay aspect. The problem with horror in multiplayer games is that you get used to it. You get used to like jump scares or any other mechanics to the point where they don't scare you anymore. There are certain other things that we can make them to allow this feeling to last for longer, like some isolation, or there are certain things that we can do to improve the horror of the game. The question is making that going to cause the game to be less social? Because again, a common horror thing is to just force people to be isolated all the time, to feel alone, to feel in an empty facility. But this is the exact opposite of what many people want, who just want to hang out with friends while they're drunk or whatever, right? We have a huge portion of the community who play this game specifically when they're drunk and they just want to play with their friends and hang out. From personal experience, I feel like SL is the best game to get drunk to.
That's probably true.
I don't drink a lot. Last time I drank was maybe like a month ago, but if I do, I do want to say that SL is probably the best game to vibe in. It's always going to be these aspects of the game fighting each other for domination, and there is no single right answer.
Well, second question by Melon is, why is the heavy containment zone so bright while the entrance zone is so dark and blue? Was there like a design decision behind that?
This would probably be a question for art. I gave them a lot of leeway. I liked the way it looked. It's just an artistic choice at that point. But yeah, we do want heavy containment zone to be a bit darker than light containment zone. No idea why entrance zone specifically is that dark. Again, mostly just artistic choice, and the fact that this is a late game zone. Even though some people, like facility guards, start in that zone, it's a starting zone. Most of the late game fights end in entrance zone and heavy zone, so these two are the darkest and creepiest in that sense, especially if you paint the walls with blood of your enemies and stuff like that. So yeah.
With the human model rework, is there a chance that we'll be getting more diverse character models?
I can't really say it for sure right now, but we would experiment with a system of some randomization into characters, so we don't all look like clones. So having some smaller variants would be very nice. That could also include more diversity. At that point, it's honestly just coincidence because we have just 5 people in the game. I don't really have an explanation why there is so low diversity into the game. We really haven't really thought about this back when the characters were first created 6 or 7 years ago. As of right now, we are looking towards some like randomization. We are experimenting with blend shapes to have certain like even model changes. Blend shapes is the reasons character customization like in Sims or anything like that works. Yeah, that would be an aspect that we would also be investigating.
3114 having audible voice lines is very cool and brings a lot of personality to the game. So do you think there's a chance that in the future we could see more voice lines being like introduced, like maybe with 049 being voiced by the Volgan?
The 3114 voice lines were a little unexpected, not gonna lie. This was more of a spontaneous idea that we had. As of right now, there are no plans for that. 049 is probably the best candidate if we did change our mind, but as of right now, there are no plans in adding voice lines to other SCPs.
Final question is, entrance zone is supposed to be the civilian sector of the facility, yet the only thing to really indicate that is a bunch of benches and cramped hallways. What kind of changes would be brought forth with a potential rework of the zone to remedy that?
In any kind of rework, we want to make sure that the zone feels like a more functional thing. So even if it's a simple hallway, we want this hallway to serve a purpose. For example, I don't know, we could have a simple hallway, but this hallway is decorated with other things than just benches. Probably has things like some TVs and some... It looks like it serves a purpose, even though it doesn't in the gameplay. Maybe even make it so there's a whole office, and if it's going to be a problem that people hide in this office, we can can just make this office inaccessible and just visible through a unbreakable glass. This is a design that a lot of CSGO maps introduce. For example, the Nuke, one of my favorite maps in CSGO, which has been a huge inspiration for level designers. You can just go there and explore this map, and you can see that the playable area is maybe like 30 or 40% at most. You have a very small playable area, but you can see all the turbine rooms and all the control rooms and all the transformers in the background and stuff like that. And none of that is accessible and probably not even noticeable by first-time players, but it really does improve the immersion, and it's something that we'll be also investigating and reworking any of the zones.
Next up, Tyler the SCP guy. He was wondering, what was the most challenging part of developing SCP Secret Lab?
Probably working around Unity. Overcoming technical issues. The actual implementation of things is usually the best part. It's my favorite, this is a very enjoyable process. I love programming for this game. I love implementing new features. The only thing that always makes you sad and depressed is when you hit a certain wall that you haven't erected yourself, and you realize later that you need to work around this wall because it's not something that you can fix, because it's not something that you introduced. It's something from Unity or something from, well, another system limitation or anything like that.
Next up is Forces 2. They ask, will there be a limit to the amount of SCPs in the game, or will more just be added over time? So do you have like a max amount of SCPs you'd like in the game, or?
There's no specific number, but we want all SCPs to be unique. I'm probably gonna go back to talking about Gmod Breach for a sec, if you don't mind. I feel like towards the end, the game modes stopped being enjoyable to me when most of the servers started introducing plugins, and they had like 50 SCPs or 60 SCPs and 70 SCPs, and all of them are effectively walk and left click on people to kill them. All of them play the exact same, it's just a slightly different character model, maybe a few different abilities, but it's all about just walking towards humans and left clicking on them. This is something that theoretically you can also accuse SL of having, but I do believe that, I don't know, playing as 079 is completely different than playing as 939. The two closest SCPs right now are probably 106 and 049, where you have the same two-click mechanic, but then again, these SCPs are so different. You have the teleporting as 106, and you can revive zombies as 049. These are different mechanics, different ways of killing people. You feel differently when you play as 049 versus as playing as 106. You adjust your playstyle, it's completely different, even though it's also technically walk towards humans, press left click and go away, right? I believe you can still feel the differences in each SCP. If we end up having a number of SCPs to the point where we simply run out of original ideas and how to make them different from each other, we could introduce some form of SCP rotation. We could just have it so if we decide that 106 and 049 are too familiar to each other, too similar, we can just make it that 1 month you can only play as 049, and the other month 106 replaces 049. So this issue is workable around, but yeah.
So that leads us into Glarf's questions. First question is the surface or entrance zone rework a top priority for the next facility rework update, seeing how they are both almost entirely container breach assets?
It's not a priority number one. They are the priority for zone reworks. We will certainly rework entrance zone and surface zone before reworking light or heavy containment zone, but I can't say that this is the thing that we do in the next major update.
Second question, which I seriously doubt you'll be able to answer, but I am curious. Is there an estimate on when the surface or entrance zone rework would come out?
No, I have no promises, no estimates. I could give you an answer right now, which is realistic, but we don't know how many other issues arise during the time where we actually work on them, and that we'll have to work on the other issues instead. So there is no answer that I can give you right now that would be satisfying.
Final question. In the 13.2 update, the art in the Class D cells were replaced with the new pieces of art from that recent art contest. Is there any chance we will see the old art returned in some form?
We've had the old art for a couple of years. It's not entirely excluded that they will see a return at some point. Maybe in the new entrance zone, we could probably have we're probably gonna have more empty walls that we need to fill with something. Probably where we could implement them. That's not a promise, that's just a random thought that I have right now. So yeah, that is the answer I can give you. Right now, there are no plans in having the older art contents that they've been displayed for quite a while in game, and now is the time for the new winners.
So the next set of questions is from handy_capable. Did you ever imagine SCPSL to last this long or to get as big as it has?
Oh no. One of the many reasons we had so many technical limitations is because the game became a huge spaghetti after the release, not even during the production. I mean, it's been a huge mess already at the time of release, but after the release, I did not expect that this game would get so popular, and personally, I didn't expect it to last more than a couple of months, so I made the only logical choice at the time, trying to push as many features into the game without having to do any reworks. Our programming manager, the first programming managers that we ever hired for the game, he said that, hey, we can't continue like that, we need to make a refactor which will probably last about 5 months. And I said, no way I'm ever pausing development for 5 months. And guess what? A couple of years later, we need to pause the development for almost a year because we have all these more technical limitations that we have just introduced. Even now in retrospect, I do think I made the right decisions because I do feel the game would have died if we didn't put content into it at the very beginning.
So next question. SCP-049 plush when?
049 plush. You see, that is a problem, morally speaking.
Yeah.
049 was actually the first plushie that we were considering implementing, but for now we have decided to keep it as is because we are still using containment breaches asset in Unity, which isn't a huge problem legally because it's a Creative Commons license and stuff like that. And even if we introduced a new SCP model, like new SCP-049 model, it would still be pretty similar to this one. So having a plushie, even if we change the model of 049, the plushie would still resemble the new model. The same way our D-class plushie will likely resemble the new D-boy, because in plushies you kind of lose the fine details, right? So I don't really have an answer for that. Ideally, we would have a new model implemented before releasing the plushie to avoid the controversies.
Next question comes from Barfbag. What happened to the April Fool's updates? Do you think we could eventually see one happen again?
April Fool's is a one-day event. When it comes to Halloween, we could expand this even to November and people don't seem to care. But the problem with April Fool's is that it's a one very specific day, and investing any amount of resources into release of new updates, we're just going to invest resources into an update that's only gonna last a day. So at that point, we're not making any April Fool's updates. It's not entirely out of the scope. We could have some smaller updates in the future, but there are no plans on having any consistency in that.
We are moving on to the YouTube community questions. First one comes from, I have no idea how to pronounce this name, so I'm just going to call him Kaj. First question is, will there ever be more playable SCPs? And if so, what needs to be done before they can be added? I think we already kind of discussed this with 314 being planned to be re-added.
3114 was not planned to be the first playable SCP. We did it because, again, Halloween, so we had lower not expectations, but like requirements. But we are currently working on new playable SCPs. We are discussing their different ideas, different proposals. We have 3 different concepts that we are currently experimenting with. Some of them have entered prototyping stage, so 3114 just got released kind of out of the... It kind of skipped the prototyping phase because we just really wanted to have something for Halloween, and we thought that this would be a great idea. But yeah, there's nothing stopping us from adding new SCPs. The thing that was stopping us was Mimicry update, or more precisely, lack thereof. The Mimicry update is the thing that actually unlocked us.
Yeah, I know it was said a little while back that the thing holding back new SCPs being added is all the SCPs not having a rework, so...
That was the explanation that we have given to the public because it's easier to explain than having to say that we need to refactor a character class manager. We knew back then that reworking all the SCPs would mean that we would also need to refactor the system, and it's easier to explain to the community by saying, hey, we are reworking all the SCPs than, hey, we need to, for whatever reason, change all the code that doesn't really affect any external behavior. We just need to do it for the sake of doing it. We have tried to explain it in the past, exactly what refactoring is and what is the purpose of it, and there are still way too many people who do not understand this process. So it's just easier to kind of hide this truth and just say that we are reworking all SCPs and not really mention anything about refactoring. That way, when you present it like this way, people hear new content and not just some under the hood work that no one is interested in. But yeah, mimicry was the thing that solved both of our issues. The fact that we were unsatisfied with many of the SCPs, and also programmers no longer have to now worry about implementing spaghetti code by introducing new SCPs.
Second question. What will be the point in which SCPSL stops development of new content?
This is an answer to you guys, the community. As long as it's as development is viable, as long as it's sustainable, as long as we're not running into some huge monetary or legal or PR trouble, we will continue developing this game. There's no definitive point at which we want to just say, oh, that's the point where we're stopping development. And if you do have any plan for that, we would announce it ahead of time. Hopefully even maybe release the source code so it can move on and live on. But for now, as long as it's working, it's not a promise that I'm making right now, just for the record. I'm just saying that this is one of the solutions that we could have done, just hypothetical. Right now, there are no plans on stopping anytime soon.
Medium Text Gang, they ask, how do you feel about the current interactions with SCP-096?
Well, I did answer that question, right?
Yeah, you pretty much did.
It is floor stelling simulator. 096 has issues that suck to play both as and against. I believe the long-term or eventual solution is trying to have more SCPs in the game to the point where people will just forgive us the removal of it or turning it into some form of NPC. Because right now, if people don't look at you, you are effectively an NPC. Maybe a better solution would be, again, turning this 096 into an NPC and giving some more tolerance. So we would turn it into more of a passive environmental hazard rather than a playable SCP. That would be a good long-term solution, which isn't feasible as of right now because of 096 having too many fans.
Titan Smash Productions asks, is there potential in SCP-076 being added, also known as Able?
Able has, I remember it had some difficult containment procedures that would be quite hard to depict in the game. It would be they can never stopped us before having difficult containment methods. We can always work around it and just change up the lore a little bit to make it better. Right now, it's not our first choice for a playable SCP. Not entirely excluded, but not our first choice.
Yeah, something I was wondering actually, in my thinking, was I know it was said a while back that there's a blacklist on SCPs being added to the game, and I believe Able was one of them. So do you guys still have that blacklist, or are you just like kind of open?
The blacklist is effectively, you guys asked too many times about this specific SCP. We're not planning on adding it anytime soon. Ergo, we are blacklisting it only to make people effectively stop asking about it. That is the purpose of the blacklist. It's never been any like legally binding in any way or permanent and something like that. There is a chance that all SCPs from the blacklist are going to be implemented. It's just they're not our first choice. The blacklist was created like 5 years ago. 5 years later, none of those SCPs are still implemented, so at the time it was perfectly valid, because when people propose 079 like an Able, and they ask if it's going to be implemented in the game, when we say yes, people expect it to be added within a year. The truth is, even if we did plan on adding Able, it would probably be in 3, 4, 5 years at the very least, because there's so many other plans that we could have in the meanwhile. So while it's not entirely excluded that it will be added, it's not anytime soon, so it's just easier to say people know we're not adding that, and if we change our mind after 4 years, nobody will care because it's been 4 years ago, right?
Next question is, what would your thoughts be on a rare, powerful suit of armor being added to the game, similar to the HEV suit from Half-Life?
HEV suit is such a cool idea. I mean, such a good concept, but not found currently. We have a system, we have a framework built for wearable items currently used by 268 and body armor. It's not entirely excluded. We had some ideas in the past, like giving some functionality to Chaos Insurgency gas masks, but no current plans by adding any kind of power suits. Though it would be pretty cool. Imagine like a Cassie integration HEV suit.
Oh yeah. Next question. What are your current thoughts on crouching or melee weapons being added?
There is a lot of ideas that sound cool, and there is no seeming reason not to add it into the game. The only issue is the analysis of consequences. If you want to add crouching, that is perfectly fine, but you need to make character animations for crouching. Mechanically speaking, crouching is a very simple thing. You just lower your character camera, you lower your character collider, you can sneak through smaller objects. It's a very simple mechanical thing. The problem is implications of that system. Now you can hide behind a lot of covers, which sounds like a good idea with no downsides. But what about the gunfights with people like really sweaty shooter players just sneaking from a corner but while crouching, being unable to die by any means, and just abusing the heck out of this system? We could probably work around this issue by making it so you can't crouch while you're having like an item equipped or anything like that, which would be a very weird choice, not without its own downsides. So you can see always the problem with all these obvious features is the analysis of consequences and whether or not we like how all aspects of the game are affected by it. As for melee weapons, no real comment here. There's really nothing stopping us. It's just about, is it really the direction of the game we want to go right now? Or maybe we should focus on other things, like reworking the zones or the human models, or changing some things with the gunfight, which already has its own issues and probably would require more attention before we add melee weapons. Jailbird is fine as it is right now. It has its own rework coming with the experimental weapons rework, and that's pretty much it.
Next question is Felita Enjoyer. They ask, will things from older PEARS tests still have a chance to be added into the full game, especially if the community wants it?
The purposes of PEARS test is to test ideas that we are uncertain about. This is the prototypes that we've been talking about earlier. We are adding it in a limited form where we want to just try out an idea. Many of features from PEARS will end up in the permanent implementation sooner or later, but it's not as simple as just merging the PEARS features into the base game, because again, they're written in a very quick way of just proving the concept instead of having a good maintainable code.
These questions are from 0JP. Firstly, what priority do SCP-244, SCP-1853, and Anti-207 have in terms of receiving buffs compared to everything else going on in game design?
I believe we have a few proposals for these SCPs. As of right now, we are prioritizing other things. I feel like many of the problems with these SCPs are, founded. That they are real, but a little overblown. There are certain people who have very bad experience with these SCPs and they're very vocal about it, but overall I don't think that an average person playing the game, that is the first issue that comes to their mind when they play it, and we would rather focus on the first issues that come to the mind.
Second question from JP is, will the operational guide get more touch-ups in the future to help teach things better? As it currently stands, outside of the playable SCP pages, it's more lore than anything, which is cool, but not directly useful to inexperienced players.
Kinda wish people used F1 menus more. I don't think people realize that it exists, and I also realize that even if they do use it, it doesn't contain all the information. Operational guide, I think it has a pretty smart separation between lore and useful information. Making operational guide accessible from the game while you're spectating could be a huge step forward. That is true that there is quite a lot of lore, but unless you're actively looking for this lore, you're not really forced to read it. If you just go to any SCP page, the first thing that you see is the abilities of the SCPs. Would be nice to have some form of like mini presentation videos for each ability. I know that Dying Light 2 makes a really cool skill tree where you can unlock each skill, and each skill is has like a little GIF, like a little video playing, presenting the ability, what you can do, how you can use it in combat. Having something like that could be an interesting mechanic. But as of right now, I'm just like spitballing. There isn't anything solid.
And the final question from YouTube comes from Ender, and they ask, will the gameplay tutorials make a return at some point?
I really like what Mecha did recently with the playlist of individual mechanics. That is such a good concept of just, being able to remove and apply small videos. Divide and conquer, I guess. And I'm not gonna lie, that this and the Dying Light 2 skill tree, it made me think of this system of small videos in the game. The gameplay, it's always difficult because tutorial is how do you make a good tutorial for the game like SL? Like, you can explain the mechanics, and the way, like, at that point I'm just tempted to linking the Mecha Solaris's playlist into the game and just make people watch the videos, because at the end of the day, making a gameplay interactive trailer, there aren't like realistic interactions that you can do. The tutorial that we used to have in game wasn't particularly helpful. It was cool because it introduced you to the concept of keycards and how you need keycards to open the doors, but I don't think that this needs to be explicitly taught by players. It's just like one sentence saying some keycards you can just open by pressing E, the others require some doors just require you to press E, the others require a keycard. And that is a single sentence, and you don't need a 5-minute tutorial to explain how you cannot open a door and how you need to look for a keycard. This is the kind of thing that you kind of learn automatically after your first game. You notice that, oh, some doors I can't open, and other people can open this door, and these people are holding a keycard. So, like, what should we even focus in the tutorial? People join the game and they don't know what to do, but isn't it also cool in that sense? You just follow people. The thing that kind of sucks is spawning as an SCP. You're new to the game, you don't know what to do, and you spawn as an SCP, you just walk towards people and you die. That is the thing that sucks. But playing as a human for the first time, I don't really think that it's that problematic. You just follow your teammates, you die a few times, but then you kind of get what's going on. Having a tutorial could help, but it would be very difficult to make an interactive tutorial that couldn't be just shortened to a few sentences.
And that was all the prepared questions I asked Hubert Moszka. Finally pronounced that right. I did ask him some questions from my Twitch chat, but this video is long enough as is, so if you're interested in that, I'll link the VOD in the description. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.